Hey guys, we're here at NAPE at the Bitcoin Mining Expo, Bitcoin Mining Pavilion. It's been a great day. Jonathan, you and I have been here for probably 10 hours at this point.
At least.
We've heard some great talks. The energy was high. And I'm excited to talk to you about your project because it really is at the intersection of Bitcoin and energy, Bitcoin and oil and gas. So let's dive into that. But before we do, just tell me, how many years have you been coming to NAPE? And how many years have you been in the oil and gas industry?
So I started in 99 in oil and gas, and I guess that would have been my first NAPE, would have been back in 99.
When you were 10 years old?
Something like that. Maybe a little older.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been coming to this either showing my own prospects back when I was vice president of land for a small drilling company. And in 2014, I actually brought Bitpetro as the first Bitcoin booth at NAPE, and it was a little crazy. We packed the house because we had a laser etching machine, and we had basically bought a bunch of, remember the Bitcoin coins, the physical coins?
The physical ones.
So we ordered them with the back basically shiny, and we could basically etch in your QR code, so your pay me coin.
Cool.
And of course, people were showing up at the booth and saying, hey, is that a 3D printer? We see lasers.
Yeah.
Shark's going to come out soon. What's going to happen? So it was a fun time. Unfortunately, I also had Mt. Gox happen to me around the time I'm presenting.
Did you have some funds on Mt. Gox?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I want to say the first big chunk was over 50 that were bye-bye. So that taught me how to self-custody the hard way.
That's insane. 50 Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
And I want to say most of them were probably bought well under $100.
Yeah.
Just, it was early and I just threw money in, and now you just look back and you're like, yeah, that could have been a lot of money, but I'm still in it. I stayed in the space, transitioned over to doing more like helping work with Venezuelan refugees. So there was a project that I did in 2017 and 18, and eventually 2018 and 19, and then COVID hit and we basically had to roll things back. But it was a humanitarian project, basically teaching people about Bitcoin, giving them $5, and they would be able to use Bitcoin. It was a paper wallet, so get the touch it, feel it, taste it side of it. And so we were, I think total count was like 900 people that we helped. So it was really good. We were slowly gearing it back up. We bought some land to build a refugee center over there. So
that's amazing.
We'll hopefully get things a little bit more funded this year, now that things are we're coming out of the cold of the winter. And so been in the space for a while and have been trying to figure out how to intertwine, the physical with the digital. That eventually led me to basically working with midstream companies. And when I got there, I understood that there was the problems that I saw as a producer were way worse on the accounting side for a midstream company. So typically what happens in oil and gas is you sell the product, and then 30 to 90 days later, you get paid on that.
Yeah.
And that creates a significant amount of cash lag. It creates accounting problems down the road because you have to reconcile what went out with what you got paid. And a lot of times, that's an Excel sheet. It's not a sophisticated software suite, and people make mistakes. And so I thought, man, if there was only a way to, go directly from the meter to paying, and then if you just had meter one, talk to meter two, and it validated the payment, then there's no more reconciliations. You did it all ahead of time. And so about a year ago, we started kind of playing around with it, and Dr. Slater from TCU came on board and advised us and wrote some code for us as well. And actually, a lot of the team has come from the Fort Worth Bitcoin meetup. So awesome. It's been really cool to take a community that was just guys getting together to talk shop and then turn around and build something real.
So I think we want to dive in a little further here to the So the problem that we're solving is pretty clear, I think, to everybody, but the solution is unique, and it's a little bit more nuanced. So tell the audience what is happening when y'all's software is embedded into this process. How are you using the Lightning Network, and how is the transaction settlement time just being compressed to virtually nothing?
So typically, there is only one meter that typically gets used. We're introducing the idea of having 2 meters, and let's say, for example, in upstream data, they're pulling the gas, and the operator would like to get paid in dollars.
Yeah.
Because of the advent of Lightning Network being plugged into a lot of the traditional financial system, now there are rails that allow you to go from a Bitcoin miner into an ACH bank account. To do that, we start with basically something like a Raspberry Pi, a little bit more hardened than that. And it listens to the SCADA system. SCADA is a lot of the safety meters and the smart meters that are in oil and gas operations, right?
Okay.
So we listen to that. We take the volume meter reading out of that, and we send it to a central computer that matches that with a second meter. If you do get a match that is validated under a certain threshold, then a Lightning invoice is generated.
Where is that second meter, though?
So we would just install it at the custody exchange point.
Okay.
One either end of the custody exchange point. So basically, meter 1 would be at the intake of the generator, and meter 2 would be at the wellhead. And so in that sense, we're able to track the gas as it's flowing through. We say 10 MCF went in and 10 MCF were used. And so
9.999.
or 9.999. There might be some slight variance because of temperature and pressure and all that. And at the end of the day, if they match, it's as simple as, creating an invoice. Right now we're using Bolt 11. Eventually we'll be able to use Bolt 12, and that'll be a little bit better because right now with Bolt 11, there's this weird thing where you have to create an invoice. There's not like a static invoice process where like I can just leave a QR code, say for example, and pay it. Right now in Lightning, you need basically a computer taking that step and providing like a URL, and then that's what LN URL is. So eventually that'll turn into a much more simplified process that we'll be able to just post an invoice that is ready to be paid, and there won't be this back and forth that kind of has to happen right now. Yeah. At the end of the day, though, it's just as simple as set up the producer with a Strike account or a Cash App account.
Okay.
And because those services are already Lightning enabled, you can go direct straight, exchange from Bitcoin over to USD. That's really what the producer wants.
Yep.
And everybody's happy. Now, you can set that because of the nature of Lightning. You can settle that basically in fractions of a second. As fast as the meter can read, you could technically do it like that. But you wouldn't, because it would create undue accounting hassles.
Yeah.
So
you need to have some period of time where that is. Yeah.
So at some point, I can see
daily?
producers either going to a daily or maybe even an hourly, no smaller time period than that. And then, what it essentially does is when you're selling oil and gas, typically you have a reconciliation process at the end of the month where you're basically saying, this is what I think I sold, this is what they paid me, and we got to argue about it. And now there is no more argument. This is what happened. It got verified before the payment went through. And so it creates, a savings of roughly, 250 hours of accounting that you no longer have to do as an oil company. So it's bringing a real world benefit to the oil company.
Yeah.
It's bringing, and this could be water too. So like a saltwater disposal facility, same thing. Okay. Any liquid that flows, technically when we build this out completely, we'll even be able to do fractional like payments for the royalty owners as well, direct from the initial sale. We can just program everybody's Strike accounts, and bam, it separates out the payment out to all the different parties. So again, it's taking systems that, right now are very manual processes, and because Bitcoin is programmable money, we can program this as a task that just automatically flows to where it's supposed to.
So does the producer need to have Bitcoin in their wallet, in their like Lightning?
No.
So really the Lightning, the Bitcoin moving through the Lightning network is actually just in the middle. On one end it's fiat, on the other end it's fiat.
Rails. Right. So
So the producers got fiat, and then they're obviously, selling the gas.
Mm-hmm.
The midstream wants fiat.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want any Bitcoin.
Well, the midstream's paying the producer, right?
That's what I meant. Producer wants fiat in payment.
Correct.
Producer or the midstream wants to pay in fiat. They don't want to risk, or they don't want to jump
Have
to
that hassle, right?
Bitcoin yet.
But in the case of, say, like a client of upstream data's, they're already generating Bitcoin. They could just skip the exchange process. They could just go straight Bitcoin throughout.
But what if it's not somebody who's in the mining space? I mean, this product is useful for the entire gas industry.
So for the two endpoints, we can settle to whatever they want us to settle to.
Yeah.
So long as there is that rail available, and in Lightning it happens to exist.
What about the Bitcoin price variance in that interim?
So because your settlement period is pretty fast, because like when you set it up in, say, Strike, you can set it up to do either a portion of what the transfer that comes in gets converted over to US dollars.
Okay.
Or you can just do all of it gets converted into US dollars instantly.
So
there's no lag there. It just automatically transferred over, and so you don't really get a capital gains hit.
Okay.
And that's really the point, is that even though we're called Meter by Lightning, we're trying to obfuscate this thing completely for the end users. We want them to feel like they're doing a regular old transaction. It's getting checked ahead of time, and it comes with a report that they can import directly into their ERP system and easily do their reconciliations, where before that was a time-consuming, expensive process.
So your software will generate a report that has a transaction history, amount, time, stamp, all
of that.
And that's a lot of programming. There's a lot of coding.
Actually, it's not. It's a CSV. I mean, that's the beauty of this is, when you're dealing with anything that's...
But didn't you have to program the meter, the firmware on the meter to generate that?
So what we're doing is we're pulling the volume, right?
Okay.
And the meter's actually doing all the calculations. There's actually a flow computer.
Okay.
There's a meter, and then there's a flow computer. The flow computer's doing all the calculations, getting all that right, logging that.
And that software has existed for a long time.
It's existed forever. And so we're basically just like a third party auditor in that case, and also providing the settlement side.
Settlement, yeah.
So it allows us to give both parties like an additional level of like, hey, there wasn't any fudging. A third party came in and saw it. And so if there is any litigation to be had later, there's a paper trail that easily proves out what's going on. But really, if you've done the check beforehand, there shouldn't be any conflict. It should all be fine. Now, there are edge cases where, for example, the transaction didn't go through, and we're going to have to build in redundancies to the system.
Yeah.
Say, for example, Lightning doesn't clear. We're going to have to go through the traditional Bitcoin layer 1 network, things like that just build in resiliency to the scheme.
Yeah. And then, so if it's Lightning, fees are negligible. If you're doing it on the layer 1, then you've got some fees to account for. Your business model is essentially, there's a huge convenience factor. You're charging for the service. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a SaaS model.
It is a SaaS model. Yeah. Exactly. It's a percentage fee on your each individual transaction that you do. And, depending on whether we're bringing in the meters and the equipment and we're doing the install, that's going to be a different fee,
service charge,
right? Than if we're just plugging into your existing systems and just pulling data from you, and then we're able to do the settlement.
You may not want to disclose this yet, but what do you expect that fee to be?
We're toying around with 2% for when we're bringing in all the equipment, and something like 0.005% on like a large midstream gathering system where they've already got everything, and we can be that inexpensive.
0.005%.
Yeah. The volumes are huge, so we don't need very much to make this work. The beautiful thing about it also is that in order to be able to settle in Lightning, you've got to have liquidity on both ends of the channel, right?
Right.
So that means that we have to load up a bunch of channels and a bunch of routing nodes with a ton of money.
Yeah.
That will be an additional revenue stream. And that's why we can keep things cheap, because we have a secondary revenue stream that has to happen.
Because you're controlling these channels that have a lot of liquidity on them and you're routing a lot of payments, there is a small buildup of fees that are accruing to your channels.
Correct. And we would be probably the largest
Lightning channels
channel in the world
Yeah.
because the amounts that are being transacted are so big.
But you would need a new channel for every instance that you're doing this, right?
No, you need several, but you don't need a new one for every single one. Because again, really what you're doing is you're just putting enough liquidity into the system so that it will clear.
Okay.
It's not like you're setting that up for each client.
So you're clearing transactions, but they could be transactions from a variety of different parties. Got it. Okay.
It could even be non-oil and gas related transactions.
True. Somebody else is using your
Right.
channel to.
They're just getting a hop over on us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And because you're such a large channel, people would be attracted to setting up.
Of course.
The word is escaping me. The connections between the channels.
Bridges.
The bridges,
pipes,
yeah.
or however you want to call them. I mean,
Channel. They would be basically setting up their node to connect with your channel.
right.
Yeah.
And really, when you look at it, we're probably already using existing node infrastructure that's already there. So when we're using Strike, we're not setting up a new node for the client.
Yeah.
We're
But if
just
you're
setting
using
up an
Strike,
account.
you're not getting those.
We still would require the liquidity to be there, because
Okay.
Strike's not going to have that level of liquidity.
Yeah.
They'll have to bounce through us.
Okay. But if you're using Strike, aren't they taking a portion
They'll
of the...
take a portion
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They're getting their transaction fees as well. Now we're going to have to basically negotiate with them for some
sharing.
sharing
Yeah.
or something, because we're utilizing their service to that final clearing portion. At some
So
point,
you can
though,
go to them and say, hey, this is the volume. If you want this business,
Yeah.
here's the deal.
and at some point, look, if the Bitcoin price goes through another cycle, we may see operators that decide to stay in Bitcoin.
True.
And then we start setting up with someone like a Voltage hosted nodes for each individual client, so that they can do what they need to do, whether they want to self-custody or whether they want to go out to their own exchange or whatever.
Yeah. So Voltage has all these cloud nodes that you can set up in Lightning. So would you potentially be offering that service to if it's a miner, then yeah.
Yeah.
But a traditional oil and gas company, maybe not now, but in the future.
In the future, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've already developed a partnership with Voltage, so we're going to leverage that partnership as much as possible. We really want to stay in our lane of, your device and the software that's doing that check, and then the ultimate settlement piece.
Mm.
And again, it's something that we see it as it's reducing risk, operational risk,
Yeah.
for the operators. It's reducing the time period at which they settle.
Yep.
And potentially it's giving them the lever to say, hey, we want to set the oracle for the price at, say, an average of 2 hubs, so Henry Hub and Waha, and it gives them that ability to do that, where right now the operator's basically bound to whatever the midstream's willing to offer them. So they don't have the ability to say, hey, look, I want to negotiate here. And maybe that doesn't happen in every circumstance, but in some it will.
Okay.
But really where we think
How much higher will they get if they take the average of the 2 hubs?
it just depends.
Depends on how gouging the midstream. Okay.
Mhm. And
Is it
look,
like 5% or like 1%?
I couldn't tell you, to be
Okay.
honest. What I can tell you is that where we really see the fit for like a larger oil company at the midstream level, someone like a Natural Gas Partners or someone like an EnLink Midstream, they tend to pick up assets.
Yeah.
And so though that asset is still a separate entity,
Okay.
and that becomes a custody transfer point. So that's an additional accounting block that they have to do.
I see.
So really what we're doing is then reducing all that accounting, because it all just gets automated,
Okay.
and they don't have to do as much. Now there's still an accountant, a CPA doing the final checks, but there's just a lot less of it. They're more efficient.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. For our viewers, where can they go? I mean, obviously this is revolutionary in the oil and gas industry, where can they go to find out more about you and more about this opportunity?
So my website's bitpetro.app, and we provide land services for Bitcoin miners and renewable energy companies and oil and gas companies. And we're sort of building this underneath that flag right now.
Okay, yeah.
But I will probably spin MBO is what we're calling it, Meter by Lightning. We'll probably spin that off and do a full capital raise.
Sure.
and just stand up its own entity. We're scheduled to speak at Empower, and so my hope is that I'll have all the paperwork done by then, and we'll be beginning to raise money for the project then.
That's awesome. That's 2 months away, right? So
2 months away.
okay.
Got to get busy.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. And
thank you for having me.
We'll look forward to tracking the progress.
Of course. And I got to do a shout out for Fort Bitcoin. So I run the Fort Worth Bitcoin meetup. You guys have been very
And the
gracious.
summit's coming to Fort Worth next year.
That's right. That's right. You guys have been super helpful.
We're going to give the Fort Worth Bitcoin meetup a free booth at the summit.
Awesome. Well, look, I can't thank you enough for the work that you do at the Blockchain Council, especially in the city of Fort Worth. You guys have really come through and shown a lot of leadership.
That's what we do. It's fun.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you guys learned something.
That was great. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir.
Hey everybody, Ryan Harper. I'm sitting at the NAPE Summit 2023 here in Houston, Texas at the TBC Pubject Power podcast booth. And I just wanted to give a couple of updates about the summit and what we have planned. We just went live with our ticketing, and I just sent an email out to, 5,000 plus people to get early bird ticketing. But that's not why I wanted to do a video. One of the things I wanted to convey is what we have planned, what we have aspirations to be, and how we see the summit being moving forward. The last 2 years have been amazing events, and it's been centralized around Texas, centralized around policy, and great efforts in Austin, Texas. Moving forward, we want to have a much bigger footprint. We're going to be in Fort Worth in November 15th and 16th. We're going to be at the convention center. We're going to have a trade show floor. We're going to have speakers that you didn't think that we could get. We have aspirations to get some high quality, high profile people, both in policy, both in political world, and in the Bitcoin blockchain digital asset space. We're going to have workshops, we're going to have startups, we're going to have universities, we're going to have nonprofits, we're going to have opportunities for startups to pitch their products. We're going to have opportunities for nonprofits to kind of showcase what they're doing, their social initiative. Our goal is to include everything that enterprise, blockchain, Bitcoin, digital asset space would want in an event. Bitcoin Miami is amazing. Consensus is amazing. Both of those events have 20,000 plus people, but both those events are probably more of your retail space. Our goal is to make the summit the premier policy, Bitcoin, blockchain, digital asset space for everyone across the country. If you're an enterprise, if you're professional, if you want to do deals, if you want to make real change, the summit is where you need to be. This video was supposed to be 30 seconds. You're welcome. Anyway, we look forward to giving you more updates, and we'll see you at the summit.